Amy Speropoulos, and I'm so excited to be joined by a great friend, a great guy in the Mid-South community who's doing really incredible things. His name is Jeff Trotter. Hi, Jeff. How are you? So I love everything that you stand for, and we're going to specifically talk about, first of all, who Jeff Trotter is. So tell folks who you are.
I'm just a kid from College Park.
I love it.
I am one of 6 siblings. I tell people all the time, my parents, they were either crazy in love or just crazy, period. They got married as teenagers.
Yes.
My dad was 17 years old. My mom was 18.
Wow.
And they fell in love and got married early and had a bunch of babies. So I'm just one of 6, man. All of my brothers and sisters are in Atlanta.
Wow.
And I'm just a kid from College Park.
I love that. So a kid from College Park you always had big dreams. You dreamed really big, which I think is a huge reflection of the great job that your parents did and continue to do with you, because that is really what makes us, you always want to have a dream and you want to work towards that dream. And speaking of that, Bend Don't Break, the creation of this beautiful brand. So let's talk a little bit about what that is.
I'll start by saying, what does Bend Don't Break mean to you? What does that say to you?
Well, I think that it means that, whatever circumstance we're going through in life, whatever trial or tribulation we're going through, we may bend, but if we are believers and Christ followers, that we will not break. Or even perhaps that we've already been broken in other situations. I know many things that I've been through, I feel like a lot of times I'm glad that I don't look like what I've been through.
Man, Bend Don't Break is really a mentality, and a lot of people ask me, hey, what is Bend Don't Break? And I turn around and flip the question on them. Like, what does that mean to you? What does Bend Don't Break mean to you? Because it may say something different to everybody based on their perspectives. Now, for me, in Western Christianity, we're seen as soft sometimes compared to the persecution that's going on in the East, especially like what the Ukraine is going through right now.
Right.
And folks over in the East. But, for me, I wanted something that had a spiritual resilience, and a stick-to-itiveness or toughness.
Right.
So, Bend Don't Break stuck out to me as far as just putting your faith in the Lord and not growing weary in well-doing and running the race with endurance.
Exactly.
And continuing to persevere.
Right.
So, for me, it's about not giving up, not breaking down and losing hope, because we have hope in Christ Jesus.
Absolutely. Because we all may bend with whatever circumstance we're going through, but the idea is if we bend with Christ in the midst of it,
you'll be hard pressed to break something that's already humbly broken before the Lord.
Oh wow, that's beautiful.
If something's broke on the ground, you trying to stump something that's already broken into a million pieces. I've presented my brokenness and my pieces, everything that I've had in shambles, to Him, and I watch Him continuously build it and over again back stronger and stronger, because of Christ in me, the hope of glory. It's not because of me, it's because of what He's doing. So anytime you're knocked down, He's going to pick you back up and build it even stronger and bigger. So that's what it is for me. Now, other people may hear and say, well, this applies different for me as it pertains to my marriage. We've been going through a rocky season together, and for some reason, when I hear the words Bend Don't Break, it's speaking to me and telling me not to give up on my marriage and not to give up on my husband, or vice versa. But somebody else may say, we've been going through some financial hardships, and when I hear Bend Don't Break, we have these rules and boundaries that we've set in place for our finances.
Right.
And we may bend the rules a little bit here and there, spend a little bit, but I know we're not just going to break the bank.
Right. We're not going to dump it all right there to get, exactly.
So I kind of allow it to be, what does it mean to you and how does this apply to your life?
Perfect.
But for me, like I said, it's the idea of spiritual resilience and faith and trust in the Lord. But yeah.
So, Jeff, let's talk a little bit about what brought you to Memphis. And I think this is beautiful because we talk about chasing after our dreams and really helping make those reality. And you actually came for a fabulous opportunity with a great organization in Memphis.
Yeah, so earlier you were asking me about pursuing dreams.
Yes.
And I always had this desire to play in the NBA and take care of my family and stuff. And that didn't work out. It didn't work out as planned. And I felt like God was leading me to still use basketball as a means of giving back. you want to pay it forward. And so I applied for this job with the Memphis Athletic Ministries, and I got a call back. I drove all the way up to Memphis for an interview.
Fabulous.
I did a 15-minute interview and didn't get the job.
Didn't get the job?
I did not get the job. I drove all the way back to Atlanta defeated, and my niece, told my sister when I got back, she said, yeah, Mommy, Uncle Jeffrey didn't get the job because he didn't know how to tell kids about Jesus, And I had all of this like impressive stuff on my resume about, the Fellowship for Christian Athletes and, all of these different ministries and things that I had been involved in.
Right.
But I really felt like that was the Lord like grabbing my tongue because he wanted me to experience Downline and for me to go through Downline Ministries. And, that time in Downline was one of the most transformative periods in my life because I had never chomped on that much word. The Bible says, do not conform to the patterns of this world any longer, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I'm renewing my mind, and my paradigm starts to shift. My viewpoint and beliefs start to shift, and then your behaviors follow after. So anyway, I came and applied for Downline.
Okay.
After getting rejected by ma'am.
Oh my goodness.
And in Downline, they actually had a job fair. Once you got into Downline, they brought different ministries from around the city in, from Icon Ministries and Streets Ministries and Memphis Athletic Ministries and so on and so forth. And I reapplied for the job. And
with ma'am.
With ma'am,
okay.
Yeah. And I think they knew because I was going through Downline that, they accepted me then.
So it turned out, but not exactly how maybe Jeff wanted it to turn out.
Oh, man.
There was kind of a roundabout.
He had to humble me big time because if I'd have come in and I got the job right off the bat, then you puff up with pride in your head to be big. So he had to deflate my my ego.
And it's so interesting you say that, Jeff, because that kind of leads me right into Bend Don't Break. Your brand, and it's interesting because we all go through trials in our life, and sometimes our way is not always what God. It's not His way, but it's Yeah,
one of the best memories that I have during my time working at MAM, because I ended up working there for a total of about 10 years, 7 years full time and 3 years part time in volunteering in different capacities, and I'm still connected to them to this day. Didn't burn any bridges. I love them.
I do too.
But I was one of the first people to have a MAM-wide baptism that we put together.
Wow.
And that's not me patting myself on the back because I was the guy who didn't get the job, right? So it just showed me God, like I said, taking those broken pieces and saying, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to allow you to be a part of what I'm doing.
Wow.
And he was mending that thing back together and showing me, he who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it to the end, to the coming of Christ Jesus. So, that was one of my greatest memories working there, was just seeing those kids make decisions to follow Christ, to get baptized, and to plug them into the local church there at Olivet Fellowship.
Yes.
It was the church.
Yeah.
But so I love my time at MAM. I still have a lot of little brothers and little sisters all over the city from that time.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's such a cool organization, Memphis Athletic Ministries. If you're not familiar, they have recently, 20 years, I think, Gib Vestal formed it and really went out on a limb to create Memphis Athletic Ministries because he was in finance. And so, but used basketball as a hook to get people in the door and ultimately led them to Jesus.
Yeah, so,
and basketball was your deal, right?
Right. And he and Kelvin Bowen, so
yes.
definitely revolutionized the game with the fundraising and
absolutely
helping them to continue to put some structure around it and to build it out. And Kelvin had the dream and the vision and had a hand in the community, had a lot of leverage with some young people in the area.
Yeah.
But shout out to those guys. The meeting was with Kelvin Bowen and Randy Odom.
Yes, absolutely.
And the thing I think in that meeting that got him was when they asked me, hey, if I were a kid in the gym, how would you lead me to the Lord? And I spit and stumbled over some stuff and I couldn't really get it out.
Yeah.
And like I said, I believe that was the Lord holding my tongue because he knew what he wanted me to experience.
Right.
and going through downline.
Right.
Yeah.
When you started doing a lot of those camps, I mean, like a lot of young boys, your dream was to go to the NBA. And when you started doing those camps, you realized that there was kind of a deficiency with helping. Once the basketball, it was like that. There you are. You know, when the basketball's gone, there ain't nobody to help.
my coach in high school, he's a great guy named Coach Floyd McRae. He made us write an article entitled "What Am I going to do when the ball stops bouncing?" What am I going to do when the ball stops bouncing? Because he wanted us to think about, you know, life beyond basketball, outside of those lines. And I feel like a lot of coaches sometimes will bark at players to accomplish their agenda, to win the next trophy or the next title or whatever, the next ring, and they don't do a lot of developing the players as young men.
Wow.
And pushing them on for, whether that's for a career or just getting them ready with character development and things like that. Funny thing about basketball, and I'll go into this spiel real quick, but James Naismith is the guy that's been accredited to creating basketball and inventing the game. He was working at the YMCA years ago, and he was looking for something for outreach. It was getting cold in the fall and winter months, and the kids normally would play outside, but he's like, man, we need something we could do indoors. And there was a group of these African American kids, and they're playing this game that they created, and they didn't have much structure to it. And he's like, what's this? You know, so he ended up putting rules to it, and he was already praying for something for outreach in his devotionals, and he felt like God opened his eyes to this game that they were playing.
Wow.
And he started putting the rules to it, and came up with basketball. And now it's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Absolutely, yes.
You know, all over the world, you know, guys are playing. And, you know, the game was created to win the man through the game. It was a part of his outreach ministry.
Okay.
And now it's flipped around where a lot of men just use the man to win the game. You're not using the game to win the man, you're using the man just to win the game. And they don't invest enough, in my opinion. And that not all isn't some, and some isn't all. There are some phenomenal coaches that, you know, are like the Coach K's, you know, with Duke, that are great with emotional intelligence and investing guys.
Right.
But I saw something that was toxic within the culture, where guys would just bark at the players. And, you know, what type of father would I be if I disciplined my child all the time? Discipline, but never gave her any instruction. Wow. I'm going to correct you all the time, but I'm not going to give you instruction. So basically, I'm just telling you what you're doing wrong, and I'm going to bark at you for everything that you do wrong, but I'm not going to focus on instruction and what you should do right. One of the greatest basketball coaches that has coached the game, and you know, this is regardless of sex and gender, but Pat Summitt, she played at UT Martin.
Yes.
Coach Pat Summitt, that coached for the UT Vols, they mic'd her up one time, and they were studying and observing her practice. They said, what makes Pat Summitt so great? Like, what is the thing? What is she doing?
Right.
What's in her sauce? What's her special sauce, right? Well, they said about 80% of her time in practice was spent giving instruction. She was giving instructions. So, but a lot of guys would bark at you, and they curse at you, and you everything but a child of God, you know, and they tear you down. So with Bend Don't Break, we do want to do skills camps and things like that, and we want to kind of combat that toxicity in the culture.
Yes.
To kind of coach guys and invest in them with devotionals, and to kind of point them to Christ, you know, as we're doing it.
Yeah.
You know?
I love that. And it's so interesting because we all have a story that helped transport us basically from point A to point B. And speaking of stories, we've all heard in the news recently, not too long ago, a very prominent rapper was shot and killed at Makita's Cookies in Memphis, Young Dolph. And there you have a story, actually. So let's talk about
Memphis,
that.
The majority of my time, I bounced around to 12 different gyms across the city of Memphis. And I was frustrated with that initially, because you get to know some kids and then you feel like, oh, you're taking me away from my kids.
Right.
The guy had to tap me on the shoulder and say, Jeff, whose kids are those? He's like, last time I checked, this was what I was doing. Remember, these aren't your kids. If anything, you should be blessed that I'm choosing to use you in such a time as this. So if I want to bounce you around to these different gyms and you're pouring into these children, count it as joy, count it as an honor to be used in this situation.
Yeah.
But a lot of my time was spent in South Memphis. I worked at maybe 4 different gyms in South Memphis. The Grizzly Center. I worked at Hamilton High School, at Magnolia Community Center, where Young Dolph is from, at Castelia, in the Castelia neighborhood. But so we have a lot of the same little brothers. We have a lot of mutual friends.
Right.
And the day that he was killed, I was actually in South Memphis that day. One of my kids called me. He said, "Coach, man, we need to get up. We need to get up." And this kid, he's real introverted. He normally doesn't talk. So I'm like, man, well, he must really need to see me and talk about something. So I pick him up and we go out and we get breakfast or whatever. And after we're done, he says, "You know what? You could just drop me at my mom's house. You don't have to drive all the way across town. Just take me to my mom's house." Well, she stayed in some apartments called El Dorado. It's right over there off of Airways, right by the Shell station.
Yes.
And Airways Middle School. So I dropped him off and I'm getting ready to go. I stop and the Shell station is on my right, and Makita's Cookies is right on the other side of the Shell station. And I'm like, man, I need some gas, but I think I can make it home. So I make a left and I hop on the expressway. I hop on the slab and I get a call. Coach Jeff, they just shot Dolph. I'm like, what are you talking about? He sent me the live video and everything was still going on, transpiring right then. Like the police, they were just pulling up and they sweeping up glass and people were running around screaming. Right. And I called one of my best friends just to let him know as soon as I could, and because I knew he was like brothers with Dolph. And he says, "I'm already on the way. I'm on the way." And I'm just thinking, like, man, this is like 10 minutes apart. I was just at the light a couple minutes ago. And I know me, like, we had been doing the back to school backpack drive with with the Memphis.
That's right, because he comes in town to do that.
And the Thanksgiving turkey giveaway, where he was doing it year after year. He'd come back and he give thanks to the community. And so if I would have saw him, I would have said something, because he came in town for that event. So, hey man, what's up? You know, I mean, we catch up. And you know, it just kind of shook me to know that we were that close, and I could have easily been standing there talking to him, not knowing anything was going on, you know, what was about to happen. But yeah, so that kind of rocked me, and not just me. I mean, the whole city of Memphis. There were a lot of people, you know, hurt by that, and continued prayers for his family and friends.
There's been so many people who've made an impact on your life, and who are still making an impact. So that kind of leads me to my next question: what are you doing now? And maybe talk a little bit more about your brand and how we can get involved in the whole process.
Yeah. So after leaving the Memphis Athletic Ministries, which would be considered a parachurch ministry, it's something that's not directly connected to the church. I moved from the parachurch ministry to working with some local churches. So I worked with Harvest Church for a while in local missions and working with their creative arts and worship department. And then I took a position here at Hope Church with Rufus Smith as his assistant, and working with the young adults. And we're just looking at ways we can get more millennials involved in the church. Right. So we came up with this program called Prolifics, which you are a part of.
So exciting. Yes, yes.
And it's a business apprenticeship program. We have about 20 mentors and 20 mentees. Right. Just looking for, you know, young people that are looking for answers, that need leadership and guidance, not just spiritually, but professionally as well. Right. And I'm like, man, if you can get both of those in the same setting, why wouldn't you?
Of course.
Because usually you'll have a mentorship program that's, you know, this is business focused.
Right.
And the other one, you know, is spiritual. But
yeah, you go here for one and you go here for one, but rarely are they together.
Right. And what's crazy, a lot of people don't know, when I pitched the name Prolifics, I actually got that term from Nipsey Hussle. I didn't know what prolific was before. He had a tattoo on his face that said prolific.
Oh my goodness gracious.
And it was this idea of being fruitful and reproducing. And wow. You know, I tell people all the time, if you're a prolific songwriter, like how he was, then you can write 5 songs in a day or whatever. You know, you just being prolific. So the whole idea of being fruitful in whatever we put our hands to, and working wholeheartedly as unto the Lord. And I'm like, what are we going to call this group? Well, this is a group of young prolifics. You know, these prolifics, these incredibles, right? These,
absolutely.
These great people that want to bear a lot of fruit in the work that they put their hands to. So,
So what's next for Jeff Trotter?
So one of the big things that we're working on is the Bend Don't Break Wellness Summit. It's going to be held at Hope Church off of Walnut Grove, and it'll be October the 7th and 8th. So we're reaching out to secure some special guest speakers. I'm not going to drop any names just yet, but my wife is, man, she is phenomenal. She is a registered nurse, a registered dietitian, a registered yoga instructor, and she's getting her doctorate as a psychiatric nurse practitioner.
Oh, wow.
And I wanted to be able to fan her flame, right? Like, and continue to invest in my wife and for us to work together. I didn't want us to run in two different lanes. When we've married each other and said we want to do life together. So how can I be your biggest fan and your cheerleader? How can we work together and serve the world together? Because my family is my primary ministry. So I said, all right, well, you're getting this education and you're learning about trauma and you're learning about healing and, you know, learning about these things. Well, maybe we can work together and put together a conference where we get other clinicians in, you know, we get other pastoral references, and then, you know, some special guests, as I said earlier, just to share their stories and to really process, you know, just mental health and wellness, and
which we all need right now.
Yeah, I mean the past 2 years have been difficult and hard, to say the least.
Right.
You know, so we're looking forward to the Bend Don't Break Wellness Summit. As far as my wife, and Whitney is, I don't think I'm being biased because I'm her husband, but she is phenomenal. She is like walking Black history. She's the only African American provider in the whole state of Tennessee.
Wow.
And she's only like one of maybe 4 in the country that are people of color, and they're just certain things that have been lopsided and been controlled by majority culture. I mean, we only make up about 13% of the population, so there are a lot of things that just haven't been thought about as it pertains to people of color. And she is biracial, and so she thinks that way. You know, she can't help but to think that way. So she's saying, how does this pertain to African American people or you know, BIPOC people? How does this, you know, with eating disorders and mental health, how does that pertain to them? And man, you know, she's done an interview with the Washington Post, and the New York Times calls Whitney when they want to get information about eating disorders. So she has a special niche. So working on this conference is a big thing because Whitney's phenomenal, but she's only one person. So a lot of people want to meet with Whitney one-on-one, and she can only give away so many hours of her time. So we said, how can we do this on a mass scale to get it out, you know, to people in other ways? So the conference will be big. Other than that, we're working on a curriculum, so we could try to help her get that out there as well.
That's great.
Yeah. So I would say, once again, just it's WhitneyTrotter.com.
Okay.
BendDon'tBreak.com.
Bend Don't Break, all one word, right? Bend Don't Break.
Except for the don't is DX.
Oh, DX. Okay.
DNT.
Yes.
So don't with the X. Yeah.
Perfect. And they're both all over social media. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
Yep.
So
Whitney Trotter RD on Instagram.
Perfect.
And my Instagram is Bend Don't Break. Don't with the X.
Absolutely.
Bend Don't Break with the X.
Awesome.
But,
Jeff Trotter, he's doing great things. You want to get involved in what he's doing, and definitely that summit that's coming up in October.
Yep, the 7th and 8th.
And when can we see the article in GQ?
April 4th through 10th. If you visit GQ's website, they'll have it on.
That is
April 4th through the 10th.
Very exciting. Don't say you didn't know, because now you know. Jeff, thank you so much for being with us. We so appreciate it. Jeff Trotter, BendDon'tBreak.com.